So looking at this list, what's your reaction to all of this? Right? This list, the variety of ways that we've approached religion, what does all this tell us?
That religion is really broad.
Religion is really broad. It can be found in all sorts of places, and it can be understood in all sorts of ways. What else does this tell us?
It's not going to be easy to capture in one structure.
Yeah, it's not going to be. That's a very good point. All right, that we're not going to be able to cover. Going back to that last, we're not going to be able to cover all of this. For, the religions that we're looking at, and of course there are a variety of ones that we're not talking about, and so it makes it difficult to try and encapsulate in even a 16-week course. What else?
Religion influences how people live their lives and how they live their.
Yeah, and to the true believer, all right? There's so many ways religion is incorporated in their daily lives, and how we, in the West, it can be easy for us to kind of compartmentalize. And not to say that we in the West are not true believers, but it can be very easy to kind of compartmentalize and say, well, religion's distinct from, my political views, from my job, from school. But when we start to see some of these things, even down to the ways that we dress, can be influenced by our religious beliefs. Or lack thereof, on the other side. I'd like to turn now to talking about a couple definitions of religions from a variety of scholars, psychologists, theologians, who have attempted to try and classify what religion is, touching on some of the things we've talked about. But I kind of want to get your impression, your reaction to some of these definitions. So we'll start first with a theologian named Rudolf Otto. Otto here says that religion is that which grows out of and gives expression to experience of the holy in its various aspects. So, looking at this definition, and these are available, I put the PowerPoints, obviously not with the parts that we put in, but the definitions are all available on Blackboard, so you can pull that PowerPoint instead of having to try and get them all down quickly. What's the core for Otto of religion? All right, so we think holiness, but for Otto, the holy is more than just holiness. It's kind of his word for the divine or the supernatural. Right? So it includes holiness, but this experience of, in Christianity we would say God, if we were a Jedi we'd say the Force, right? If we were Hindu, Brahman, that there is this being or power out there, and it's our experience of that that's at the core. And what happens then out of that experience, according to Otto? Yeah, religion is kind of the how do you understand all of that? Right? How do you understand? How do you get to that experience? How does that experience make sense in its world, in the world? And by trying to say in its various aspects, Otto's trying to be broad and not clearly define, Christian view versus a non-Christian view, although Otto himself was Lutheran. Looking at this definition, is it a helpful definition? Is it encapsulated everything about religion? Is it missing something? Is Otto on the right track, or is he led us down the wrong path?
It's extremely general.
It is extremely general.
I'll clarify what it is. It's just saying something we're already thinking, which is, it's expressing something. What is expressing? What are we experiencing from that? What are these aspects that we are experiencing, and how are we growing them?
Okay. Why do you think you
more questions than answers?
Why do you think he would have left it general?
to be open to each person's own beliefs of what they think it is and how it correlates to them. They're either non-existent or already existent religious belief.
Yeah, because if he gets really specific, what's he do?
He narrows it down to a particular religion.
He narrows it down to a particular religion. Now, yes, as a religious adherent, you would expect that kind of narrowing down, but he's trying to allow for a pluralistic view, allow for diversity, and really almost a relativism here to some extent. So he leaves it very broad, but it doesn't really help us too much where we can't ask God, well, the things that grow out of this experience of the holy, what's that entail? Right? Does it, and what are we looking for? Right? And so it can be problematic because of this focus, but also it's this experiential component. Are there religions or are there experiences that we would probably say, yes, those are religious, but they're not about this experience of the holy? Maybe we could do that. Another thinker, Friedrich Schleiermacher, also a theologian, also with a very broad definition, says that religion consists, the essence of religion, at its core, the essence of religion is in the feeling of an absolute dependence. Do you agree? Do you disagree with Schleiermacher? Why do you say disagree?
Because there are religions like Buddhism and other religions where there's nothing for you to depend on. It's just about you making your life better and improving yourself. So,
Right.
They
Go
do
ahead.
depend, they do depend on things. Like they'd have beliefs about what's going to happen to them when they die. Not necessarily like Buddhism, but there is there's a point to everything. Like there is a dependence. Whether or not it's like you depend on God or like other people in a religion, there could be a belief or a practice that you like absolutely depend on that defines your religion.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, I see what you're saying, Israel. But I could also say, well, within Buddhism, there is that almost absolute dependence on the Buddhist teaching as a true view of the world. Yeah. But you're right. There certainly isn't. Like if we think of absolute dependence and I'm fully depending upon God, then yeah, there are quite a few religions there are a few experiences that wouldn't fit in there. One of the things that Schleiermacher is trying to do in the 18th century, or not the 18th century, the 1800s, is he's living in a time period where, as a Christian, Schleiermacher would consider himself a Christian, he's living in a time period where people are starting to make claims about where the Bible came from, and there's claims about evolution and some other things. And so what he's trying to do in this emphasis on the feeling of absolute dependence is try to take Christianity out of a realm of it's about the intellect and it's about the intellectual coherence of the biblical text. And he's trying to provide a way to allow for the truth of Christianity, even though people are starting to question some of the historicity of it in the 19th century. Right? And so that's part of what Schleiermacher's move is to do, is to try and salvage Christianity in his mind from some of the challenges that it's facing. Other thoughts about this feeling of absolute dependence as a definition.
The context of the statement makes sense, but I don't know that you can say feeling is a definition without giving an intellectual, because a belief is, I think it's both like thinking and feeling, but you would need the other side of the coin to really make it definite your definition.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's to emphasize one aspect is kind of trying to go too far the pendulum swinging too far the other direction, getting away from the life of the mind that was so important for Christians in the Middle Ages, the 1700s, 1800s, which it still should be important, but you're kind of going the other way instead of trying to find the balance. And then the other thing, of course, is that he's trying to boil this down to the essence. And he's trying to emphasize this kind of experiential component, much like Otto was. But there are other aspects that we've talked about that have that quality of religion that aren't necessarily about, absolute dependence. Thinking about, let's say, dress codes. I don't mean dress codes at Faulkner. I mean codes of dress within a religion, right? The hijab, or an Orthodox Jew wearing the yarmulke. Those kind of things. Are they directly related to feeling? All right. Well, it looks like we got the microphone back, even though we don't have the data back. So yeah, aspects of this feeling of absolute dependence don't fulfill everything we'd like in talking about religion. On the other hand, negative assessment, two of them here. Sigmund Freud, probably if you know anything about Freud, you're not surprised by this comment. Religion is comparable to a childhood neurosis. Now, Freud looked at religion as an atheistic Jew and thought that it was a part of civilization that would eventually die off. That it was something that society perhaps needed, civilization perhaps needed in its infancy to create society, to bind people together, to create civilization as we know it. But at some point, we would move beyond religion as a species. Of course, Freud's been dead for quite a while, and religion is still kicking along pretty good. But essentially, the other thing that Freud is suggesting here is the repetitive nature of neurosis. The kind of things that develop in childhood that don't make psychological sense. Religion is, for Freud, like that. Now, a lot of people would find this definition acceptable, and you can look on any of a variety of sites and find, even in the comments in, like sports websites, you can find people talking about this, with somebody trotting out, oh, you just believe in the great fairy tale, the tooth fairy in the sky, right? Well, this is essentially what Freud's getting at, right? This idea that religion is a childhood neurosis. Not very helpful, Freud. Doesn't take seriously the experience of people that is broader than just the individual psychology. Kind of similar in his disdain for religion, but in a different way, is Marx's approach. Probably you've heard this phrase, right? The religion is the opium of the people, which is not exactly what Marx says, but essentially that's the idea. Opium, of course, being a drug that dulls the senses, used as a painkiller, but also used in kind of a recreational standpoint in the 19th century. Marx's whole point with this comment was that religion is used by the upper classes to keep the lower classes in control. And so what they do is that the religions postulate that the sky is the great employer and we are his servants, and he has established also the societal order of masters and servants. Now, of course, Marx is trying to work against that idea. But this is what he's saying, how religion works is that it entrenches economic class distinctions, gives it divine sanction, and keeps the lower classes in control. In one sense, or in a couple senses, Marx is right. Religion can certainly work that way. Religion can certainly, one of the things we put up on that list was control. Right? So religion can be used to control people, to keep them in their place, to keep people satisfied with their conditions. But we can also see how religion causes people to rise up against their oppressors and kind of work against those things. Religion can be used for positive things. And so while Marx should be completely condemned, he's right about some things here, it's not the totality of religious experience. And also, of course, heavily shaped by the West, and Marx's Western experience.